Hello, all you positive heads out there. It is so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we are super happy to have you here, and we just ask that you bring an open heart and open mind to your listening experience and to be prepared to explore vantage points that I'm convinced will help shift or solidify your current understanding of the ultimate nature of reality in a way that is extremely empowering. Speaking of exploring powerful perspectives, I'm super excited to announce that on January 18th, originally January 5th, but I needed to push it back a bit, I'm going to be freely gifting each of you my very first book, The Golden Key: Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. In the book, which was initially shown to me in a dream and has been followed by a next level amount of synchronicity, by the way, I share the keys to manifesting abundance that I've personally discovered over 20 plus years of trial, error, and deep exploration of these perspectives, as well as one golden key that ultimately ties them all together. Also, I would like to invite you to participate in a unique abundance manifestation game with me and the other readers that is outlined in detail at the end of the book and at the book's website, goldenkey.gift, where readers will also share the inspiring results of their abundance manifestation experiments. So if you're wanting 2021 to be the year that you alchemize the circumstances in your life so that your abundance expands to an entirely new level, head over to goldenkey.gift to sign up to accept my golden gift to you right when it comes out. All right, all you positive heads. On this week's Soul Share episode, I'm very excited to have my radiant friend, Sahara Rose, back here with me on the show. Sahara is a best-selling author and the host of the epic Highest Self podcast, where she indeed lives up to the claim from Deepak Chopra that she is a leading voice for the millennial generation into the new paradigm shift. And Sahara, if you've been listening for a while, you probably caught her a while back on originally on episode 574 of this podcast, then on an episode of Optimistic with me, and today she is blessing us up with her presence to share some insight into her brand new book, Discover Your Dharma, a Vedic guide to finding your purpose. Hello, Sahara. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me back. It's an honor to be here, and I can't wait to see where the conversation takes us.
Well, one thing I can count on with you is it's going to take us somewhere interesting, guaranteed, or your karma back, everyone. So, or your dharma back in this case.
Love that.
Although I don't think you want your dharma back, but okay, I digress. All right, so I'm going to start off with the same opening question I have been for years, and I don't remember if I was still doing this. I probably was back in 574, a few years back when you were on. But I'm going to ask it again. And let's see, maybe your answer's even changed. You're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You have 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
My passion at this moment is embodiment, connecting back to the physical body, letting the body be the spiritual vessel that I am having this experience through, connecting to its wisdom, tuning into it, and letting myself feel rather than think through my experience.
Good answer. You almost hit the Willy Wonka answer where we go through the 10th floor into the cosmos, but not quite. Well, I think you just made
the person on the elevator is like, bye.
Oh, man. Beautiful answer. So, yeah, let's talk. You've done so, I think, if I recall, you've done so much since we originally had you on the show. If I recall, I don't believe you had launched your podcast yet. Back when you were originally on. Do you know? Do you recall?
I don't know. I launched my podcast in June of 2017. So if it was before then no. So my podcast is going to be 4 years this coming year.
Gotcha. Let's see if I can see it real quick. Hold on.
But yeah, every moment in time filled with so much. I have, in the past couple of years, it's sort of like that Dharma seed blossoms, and once it's ready to grow, there ain't no stopping it. So I've written, multiple books: Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda, Eat Feel Fresh, A Yogic Path, Oracle Deck, and Journal, and now this book, Discover Your Dharma, and just have, it's almost like when you're riding on a wave and it's just continuing to take you to what's next, what is seeking to come through me, and you're letting yourself surrender while still, surfing and balancing and looking out. And it's that fine balance of both, of tuning into how am I being called to serve, and now what action can I take to allow my physical world to be a reflection of what is happening internally inside of me.
Yeah, I just looked it up, and it was, you had just launched it. I suppose it was December of 2017 that you were on. So, yeah, what a ride. I mean, I so admire all the work and all the things that you do. You're definitely doing it. You're definitely doing it. And what's great is no one better to talk about the subject of Dharma and finding your, essentially discovering your soul's purpose, right? Than you. So, I think that'd be a great topic to start with. Just, for those, there's so many out there listening who are like, here are all the accomplishments that you've done, or here are the things that I've done, and be like, oh, lucky for them. They found their purpose and they're successful or whatever, but not me. And I want to do whatever I can to expunge that thought form from the planet and everyone's mind who's listening to this podcast. How can you help?
Yeah, I mean, I relate. I used to also think, oh, there's some special people out there who have a purpose, but it's not me. It's not one of us. Even though deeper in my heart, I did know that I had a purpose. So my mother was a refugee and my dad was an immigrant. My mom fled Iran by foot during the Iran-Iraq War, during the Islamic Revolution. And my parents met in the United States, and their quest was survival. How can we survive in this new country, given that everything we have has been taken away from us? So I was born 2 years after my mom came here while she was in college. And, for us, it was about how can we fit in? I didn't even speak English when I first started kindergarten. I only spoke in Farsi. So how can I assimilate? How can I fit in? I look different than everyone else. I sound different than everyone else. My name is different than everyone else. Even though deeper inside of me, I could feel that I had these differences. I was always connected to spirit. I could always see the unseen. And sometimes as a kid, it actually scares you. But I was really connected to, witchcraft, for example. I grew up in Boston near Salem, so I loved going to Salem and being by, the places where the witch trials actually happened, and going into the woods there and connecting to spell books and all of that. And I would connect with spirits and all of these things. And when I was in fourth grade, I had these three girls, and we were the four witches representing the north, south, east, and west. And all the kids thought we were batshit crazy, evil, all of the things. And I remember, it's a kind of sad story, but I was walking across this hill where my school was. It was a very steep hill, and there was this group of kids, and they saw me walking by them, and they're like, burn the witch at the stake. And this boy threw me down a hill, and he had on this metal cast, those casts that you can walk on. So he threw me down the hill. He came tumbling after me. His cast hit my head. I had a concussion, and I rolled all the way down, and then eventually woke up. And I woke up, and I can still hear it now. They were all just laughing, like erupting in laughter, like, we killed the witch is dead, ding dong, the witch is dead. And I just got up and, walked myself to the principal's office. And I knew then it is not safe for me to be magical. And the school, their response was to not let me talk to those girls anymore, that we were up to no good. We were scaring the other kids. Not that those kids did anything, but something was wrong with us. And because of that, I put all of that side to myself away. I just wanted to, fit in with the norm. And it wasn't until later on, when I was in high school, that I started to practice yoga. yoga became my vessel to then reconnect to spirituality in this way that it felt like it had some science to it. It felt like, okay, I can understand these practices and this and that. So I felt very, I really went into this yogic path. For me, it was Ashtanga yoga. And in that practicing of yoga, it brought me deeper into different forms of Vedic spirituality. So I began to, read books of people like Deepak Chopra, etc. And in this time of my life, the world around me began to shift as it does. I thought I was doing this physical practice, but as we know, one thing will always take us to the whole. So for me, I grew up wanting to be an international human rights lawyer. That's what I went to school for. I even went to college in DC studying international development. I felt like it's my responsibility, that the fact that I was born here, to then help others. And I thought that if I sacrificed myself the most, then I could be the most of service. So I would look around and say, okay, what are the worst things in the world? Okay, I will go and fix those problems, whether it was human trafficking, child labor, all forms of really grave problems of the world. And I thought, maybe one day I'll become a human shield and just, step in front of a village and they bulldoze me and I can save the village. And that will be the meaning of my life. So I had this desire of wanting to help people, but my examples of helping people were sacrificial. It was, you can't enjoy your life. Enjoying your life was very selfish of you. And I had to pay my dues here. So in that experience of then moving to DC and working in a nonprofit organization for immigrant and refugee rights, I found myself so miserable. Here I am doing the thing that I thought would, I'm helping people and that's the purpose of my life, but I was not using my creativity. I was not excited for the day. I had a really bad eating disorder and I was depressed. And I knew intuitively, how am I going to save the world when I am feeling like this? But I just had a really hard time of how can someone enjoy the world? There's so much wrong. There's so much corrupt out there. So how can people just enjoy the world? So it's this battle within me because I'm practicing this yoga, but I'm still not really seeing how that can echo out into how I can help the world. So I, was in this really confused point of my life, now graduating from college and having no idea what I want to do, feeling like my whole life was guiding me to this one point of being this international human rights lawyer. And that was, swept under my feet. It's not something in alignment for me anymore. And I don't know what is. So in this part of my life, I started to really look at the different beliefs I had, beliefs such as to help people, you have to sacrifice yourself, or that life is hard and painful and you just got to plow your way through it and you just got to survive, and all of these things that I was either told or subconsciously understood, and began to really look at, is this serving me or is this not? And at this time, I was living in India and I decided to, get a one-way ticket to Bali. And I had never been to Bali. I didn't know anything about it. And when I got there, I saw all these people having these completely different experiences. They're like tantric life coaches and like holistic chiropractors and like all of these things. And I would ask all of them, I'm like, do your parents know you're here? Like, are they okay with you being here? Like, I had never seen anyone, just like living that experience for themselves. And some of them would tell me like, yeah, my parents come and visit me all the time. And some of them told me, my parents haven't spoken to me in 10 years. So I was in this kind of like quote unquote confused, which now I don't believe there's any such thing as confusion, but at this questioning moment of my life of, can you enjoy your life and help the world? What does that look like? Is it selfish to do something that you really do love to do? And how are you even going to make money doing it? Because a lot of these people I would see, they were drinking the green juice and going to ecstatic dance, but then money was a really big problem for them. So I hadn't really seen an example of someone who has fully stepped into this idea of living your Dharma. So through my own journey of processing and unraveling and deconditioning, my situation with my family got worse and worse. They, at this point, thought I was crazy. They wanted to send me to a mental asylum. They didn't understand, what is this truth that you are seeking for? And it was just a constant battle of, how dare you do this to us? After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us. You are the most selfish
Wow.
person I have ever met. So here I am wanting to help, and I'm feeling like I've created so much pain and agony in my own family because I am now choosing this alternative path. So eventually the situation with my parents got worse and worse, that I had to come back to Boston and like face them. I couldn't run away from this anymore, because as we know, our family and our ancestral connection really is the ground base of where this all begins. And I remember this one specific fight I had with my dad, of him just saying, "You are such a failure. You are a loser. Like, you are everything I wish I
Wow.
would never be. And I want nothing to do with you." And
oh my gosh.
yeah. And at this point, I went down to like my childhood room and I looked at all of these toys, and I just had all these memories of like when you're a kid, they're like, "What do you want to be when you grow up? Follow your dreams, like, follow your heart." And here I am doing it. And I'm like, wait, was this all bullshit? Is this a story of like Santa Claus? They tell you when you're a kid and then you grow up and you're supposed to just assume like, oh no, you weren't actually supposed to follow your dreams. Like, that is a bunch of hocus pocus. So
Right.
at that moment, looking at all of these things, I was just on my knees crying, just feeling so alone at this point, having, leaving that community in Bali, having no friends, no direction, no purpose. And now my family has disowned me and never wants to speak to me again. I don't even have any money. I don't even know where to go. So
Wow.
in this moment of, I just don't even know where to go next, I felt this feeling of numbness that came over me. It was almost like this wave of detaching myself from wanting their approval, from waiting for the gold star. And I realized in that moment how much I had been living for that, living for any form of external validation, but especially from my families, of like, you're good enough, you're worthy, you're a good person helping others, keep doing that. And here I am now, essentially dead to their eyes. So who am I going to live for? And if I don't have to live for their approval anymore, then I'm free. And the only person who I have to live for his approval is my own. So I didn't have any money. The only option I could think of was to go move into my grandma's place. And that's what I did. And I went to my grandma's place, and I realized then how much my deepest desire was to share. During this stage, I went through my own healing journey, and Ayurveda really helped me. And I just wanted to share this Ayurvedic wisdom. I just knew that this helped me, and I want to share this with others. So I began writing, and I didn't know anything about, I never met an author in my entire life. I had no idea how the whole thing worked, but I just knew the first stage is just write the book. So I would just write. I would vend pants at music festivals that I got from India, like, would just sell things on Venice Beach, like just do whatever I could to make some money. And then all the money I could put into trying to edit this book and get this Ayurveda book off the ground, because I knew if it helped me, I went through perimenopause when I was 21. My body was shutting down, all these different health issues that Ayurveda helped solve, that there were other people like me who could use this healing wisdom as well. So it wasn't that I wrote this Ayurveda book and then everything was great. I actually got rejected by 30 different publishers, all of which echoed back my same fears. No one cares. You're too young. You're not a doctor. No one knows what Ayurveda is. It's never gonna happen. And there were so many times that I'm like, okay, well, I guess this is it. I guess I just gotta like maybe go become a real estate agent or figure out something else to do. But this deeper desire in me kept coming back of, if I had 1 year to live and I don't give this a try, I will forever live in regret. So I kept going and I kept going. And eventually the path, as you speak about too, began to unveil. And I met one girl who wrote a book, and she introduced me to someone else, and she introduced me to a literary agent. And long story short, that literary agent was asked by the Idiot's Guide group that write Idiot's Guide to like gardening or whatever to look for someone to write the Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda. I applied, I wrote the chapter and the table of contents, etc., and I was hired for that job. And then from writing Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda, I basically saw Deepak Chopra at a conference, walked up to him, told him about my book, sent it over to him, and he ended up offering to write the foreword of my book. And then suddenly my life had just shifted so much from this series of unfortunate events into like, what? I have a book and Deepak Chopra is writing the foreword to it and he wants me to collaborate with him. And I'm like, now,
Right.
you know, all this momentum is happening. And I remember I watched this Facebook Live that Deepak did, and he was speaking about how Kriya flow is normal. Life is always meant to be lived in flow. And I sent him an email and I was like, hey, Dr. Chopra, I was still so nervous, you know, just the fact that I even had his email was like, what the hell? And I was like, you mentioned that life is meant to be lived in flow, but like, can we always live in flow? I mean, don't periods of flow have to be followed by periods of inertia? Like how can this actually be working? Like, is it a 50-50 balance? Like I still couldn't wrap my head around it. And he wrote back, if life is not always in flow, then something's not right. And that really shifted the game for me of this is how life was meant to be lived. This is the normal, because right now I am not living for someone else's external validation or what society has to say or what I think will make money or whatever the thing is. I'm following my truth. And now the universe is setting up the right situations and conversations and scenarios and all of the exact resources that I need, that it's almost like it's now propelling me in the direction of my Dharma, because I'm now living in that flow, living in that alignment. And one of the concepts that I speak about in the book in Discover Your Dharma is that we were all born on this highway, and that highway is your Dharma, your soul's purpose, the big reason why you're here, your soul's frequency, your fullest expression. So when we're living on this highway, we're on cruise control. And that's that taking the passenger seat of your life, of the right experiences are meeting for you at the right time. And you feel like you could have never created this. It had to have just almost serendipitously happened around you while you're taking that aligned action. Now, life was meant to be lived on this cruise control highway, but along this highway are different exits. And these exits are, oh, well, your parents will be more proud of you if you do that, or you'll make more money doing this, or well, everyone you know is doing that, or oh, that's going to look ridiculous, or you're never going to make it doing that. So as we're on this highway, we see everyone we know is getting off at these exits. And then we find ourselves, we're like, wait, I'm the only one on the highway. Am I the crazy one? Should I get off at this exit before it's too late? Yeah. And then you're like, oh shit, well, maybe there's not going to be another exit later on. So I might as well just get off at this one. So you get off at an exit and the universe responds. And it responds in the only language that we can understand, which is, you know, pain and frustration. So you get off at that exit, and that might be, you know, taking a job that in no way is in alignment with your Dharma, but, you know, you feel like it looks good on your resume. And then the universe responds of tap, tap, tap. You feel anxious. You really don't want to go to work in the morning. You're feeling really just fed up with life. But, you know, you look around and apparently that's normal. Just drink more coffee and drink more wine and numb yourself enough to get through it, because that's just what hashtag adulting is like. So you continue to venture off that exit, and the universe is like, okay, well, you are not responding. And it goes knock, 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 knock. And that can feel like panic attacks, you know, breakdowns, etc. And sometimes we make that U-turn, we pivot, we look at what's not in alignment, we come back to that highway. But other times we look around and we say, I guess everyone is feeling like this too. This is normal. So let me just keep going off that exit.
Right.
And then the universe is like, oh, hell no, you are not listening. Let me shake some shit up. And that's when it's like collision, accident, something that is so on your knees, you have no choice but to look at your life in a different lens. And for some people like Eckhart Tolle, that was what caused him to now make that U-turn and discover the power of now. And some people live like that too, that, you know, we all know that maybe that person is just one breakdown after the next, after the next, after the next. And it's always the outside world and it's never looking within. So this bounded action that's happening, this exit, is called karma. It's one of the definitions of karma, bounded action by the universe to bring you in alignment with your dharma. So I think a lot of times we only think of karma in the way of what goes around comes around, etc. But in this way, it's actually protection. It is redirecting you towards your dharma. The only reason why you're experiencing this pain and this suffering and this breakdown is so you know not to keep going in that direction, because then you can say, oh, this feels off. I'm not feeling the same energy. I'm not feeling the same flow. So I need to make that pivot. And different people need to experience different levels of breakdown. It's not keep waiting until you're on your knees and make a change. As you begin to feel what this dharma, what this flow feels like, then you can start to feel when things are a little bit off. You don't have to get to level 5. You can be like, okay, the wind and the direction of the wind has shifted a little bit. So let me now pivot and move back towards dharma. So in my own experience of doing so, I radically made that U-turn and then entered into this highway that now these works are just flowing through me. All I have to do is say yes to being a vessel for the wisdom that has always been inside of me, but now I am finally tuned into that frequency.
Wow, that is so inspiring. So the first thing that I thought of as I heard the journey from your dad disowning you to seeing how far you've come, and really a short period of time too. What does he say now?
It's interesting because I write about the story in Discover Your Dharma in chapter 1. And that was like the hardest part of the book to write, because it's one thing to go through something yourself. It's another thing to write it. It's another thing to write it for the world and him to read it. So it was this it was the kind of the final frontier of the situation of my life that I felt like I was over, but there was still some, energetic chords happening of how can I not dilute my experience of what I've overcome and allow myself to see it from his perspective too, of in his experience, he had never seen anyone writing an Ayurveda book before. He did think I was going to become homeless. He didn't know what I was talking about. He just wanted me to be safe. And that safety was confining me. So it was a challenging, thing. And now I have so much respect for authors who really share their hearts out there, and just knowing that all the people in their lives read that. So, now that he has read it, he is proud of me. He's so grateful that I didn't listen to him and that I continued. And in fact, he says I got it from him. He's like, oh, all that, you just got that from me, And it's like,
I'll take credit for that.
Yeah, I'm like, sure, go ahead. But, the biggest fears that we have are sometimes the best things that can ever happen to us. I think sometimes we're so afraid of what's that worst case scenario, and to actually sometimes go there. Like, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen to me? Okay, I fail. What will happen after the fail? I lose my money. What happens after that? No one will love me. What happens after that? Well, I realize who will really be there for me. I will realize I have everything I need. I will realize that, and sometimes that worst thing that can happen to you paves the path for the best thing that can happen to you. But we're often so afraid of the idea of it that we don't realize how resilient we will really be in the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And from you look at it from an expanded vantage point, it's like, okay, Dad played the role that he signed up to play for you, to have the experience to overcome, one of the greatest, I always refer to them as like bosses on the end of our, as we level up in life, this video game called Life on Planet Earth, they're bosses at the end of certain stages. And what bigger boss for many people than their parents not supporting them and having, and sort of, in this case, blatantly saying you're a failure. This is not the path. Do not go this way. And it's like, okay, I've got to overcome that in-level boss to really be birthed into my, greatest and greatest self and highest expression. So I just applaud you for doing that, because that's a big one.
Yes. Yeah. My mom was like, well, why didn't you write about all the good things that we did for you? And I'm like, you know what? Out of everything that you've done for me, I'm actually the most grateful for this, because I wouldn't be who I am if it wasn't for that. Because subconsciously, I was seeking that external validation, and I couldn't be doing the work I was doing if I was like, oh my God, they don't like me, or they don't believe in this, or they don't believe in that, so I should stop. Like, I needed to go past that in ground zero, my own home base, my internal reality, for that to now transcend into my external reality. And the thing is, it's never done. It's not like 1, 2, 3 Dharma and like it's game over. You're just living your Dharma forever. It's this
right.
It's this mountain range of you get to that first summit, and the first summit is often, the most difficult because you've never climbed a mountain before and you don't know how to, you don't have the right shoes and you've never met anyone that's climbed that mountain before, but you finally get there and you realize it's a mountain range, and it keeps going and it keeps going, and it actually just takes you deeper and deeper into it. That I see it, I feel like sometimes in spirituality, we think of things in such a linear way because of our school system has taught us this way, but I see it so much more as a spiral. So in that spiral, if we can all think of a spiral in our mind's eye, it takes you across the circle, and then you go back to the same things. You go back to your childhood, you go back to your purpose, you go back to your relationship, you go back to your healing, and then you continue to go and spiral through it again and again at a deeper and deeper and deeper perspective. So the work is never done. The Dharma is never done. The understanding of experiences that you've had are never complete. You're just going to continue to deepen and deepen into it. And that's why I really love to share with people is your Dharma is not this one thing that you go do, or this thing. Like I used to ask people like, do you know what my purpose is? Like maybe they had the answer. I didn't have it. And it's just, your purpose is to be your fullest expression. It is your soul's frequency. It is the unique essence in which only you can carry, but the iterations of that will change. Your Dharma can be, you're here to connect people into seeing a more cosmic way of seeing the world and connecting people to this larger worldview that we are all one and connected to this universal energy of love. Right? So let's say that is your greater Dharma. Now, the manifestations of your Dharma can be writing your new book, doing this podcast, having your retreats, having your events, maybe you're making these products. So someone could look from the outside and say, oh my God, you're so all over the place. You're doing all these different things, but actually you're still in alignment with your Dharma through everything that you are doing. And as you deepen into the spiral, more of these manifestations will come through. And then the ones that are not at that capacity that you're at right now will naturally dissolve. So the quote unquote goal, which really isn't a goal at all, is to follow what is exciting for me right now, what is asking me to propel my energy towards it, what is that path that is illuminating in front of me, and now how can I take my experiences from my past to now dictate that journey, to bring my magic sauce, my essence, my frequency, my personality, my human experiences into this cosmic quest that truthfully all of our dharmas is the same. We're all here to raise consciousness, but the unique fractals in which we all are going to allow us to light a different part of the web. And that is really the purpose of all of our lives, to look at, I have this 5-step process called the Dharma Blueprint process. And it's really, in a kind of easy way of looking at it for people who are like, I don't know what to focus on, is look at what are your Dharma archetypes. We can talk about them. There's these 9 Dharma archetypes, like a teacher, a visionary, a warrior, an artist, a nurturer, a researcher, entertainer, activist, etc. Look at what obstacles have I overcome or helped someone else overcome. Look at what mediums are coming through you. Is it writing? Is it dancing, painting, conversing with people? Look at your superpower. Now, this is the thing that just you naturally can do best. Sometimes it's hard for us to see, but what do your friends come to when they have a problem? Like, for example, for you, Brandon, if you got a text from a random friend that said, I need your advice on something, what do you think it will be about?
What would it be about? It'd probably be in dealing with a sticky situation in their life. Something that's challenging, and there is, sort of 2 ways to look at it. And it's not such a black and white answer. It's like, I'm not sure what I should do. That it would be something in that vein.
Love that. And that is part of your dharma. You are someone who's able to look at these, sticky situations or complicated situations like quantum physics, which we were just talking about in our podcast, and really make it understandable for people. So that's part of your dharma. That's part of your superpower. Your soul chose that for a reason. For someone else, it could be for helping others through their relationships or with their branding or with their home renovations or whatever that thing is for you. So combining together your Dharma archetype, your superpower, obstacles you've overcome or helped others overcome, the medium that naturally channels through you, and then also what excites you. And you can actually just do it as a practice of going through each of these things and then looking at what brings them all together. And that will give you an expression for your Dharma at this moment of time. And it will continue to shift. The things that are exciting for you will continue to shift. You'll overcome more obstacles in your life, and that will continue to dictate what it is you want to experience. Maybe new archetypes will come alive in you. So your only job is to surrender to what experience you're in right now. What is the contract in which your soul is asking for you to create a solution through, and how can you be a full body yes to it?
Yeah, I love all of that. And it's, I think a lot of times people think they have to have the whole thing figured out. They've got to see from A to Z, and it really just doesn't always, not to say it can't, there's certainly the person who's like, I was born and from the moment I talked, I said, I'm going to be a firefighter, and that's what I became. That certainly happens, but more often than not, it's like, my journey is a winding road. It's a series of, it's a mountain range. Once I achieve to one place, there's somewhere more to go. And maybe there'll be a course correction at some point. Maybe there will be a totally different path that emerges. And I think people get overwhelmed by some of that. And really, I think you would agree. It's like knowing just what is your highest excitement now. What is looking at the clues and just putting one foot in front of the other. You don't have to, Rome wasn't built in a day kind of thing, right? So I think that's a big one for people. And then also knowing that there is something for all of us. There is enough room for everyone to experience a life path that is fulfilling, a career that is fulfilling, their way they're showing up to service, in service to others. This path, and maybe more than one path, but as you said, we're many things in our lives and many different, I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm a, podcaster, I'm, been an employer, all these different hats that we wear. And it's like, you're going to see, there is plenty to go around for you to step into that thing that you are perfectly designed for. What you seek is seeking you. And I think that is foundational for people to get on their path. Regardless of tuning out all the white noise about, statistical probabilities and competition and all that stuff. I think, would you agree? It can really get in the way of us stepping into our power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love how you also refer to it as Sims characters, because I see it as the exact same way of, the universe designed us as the exact Sim characters to fulfill our dharma. So when we're playing the Sims, you design one to be more organized, another one to be more extroverted, another one to be more adventurous.
Right.
And you fill them up with the personalities, and the desires and the interests for them to naturally gravitate towards their dharma. And in fact, it's the only way the world can come into balance. So right now we're experiencing this time that we're looking outside of us and we're like, oh my God, there's so much wrong and it's so overwhelming. And, for a lot of people who didn't know about it, this could be their first time of seeing all of the shadows of society. And I think 2020 taught us that if we all just try to blindly take action in this way that we haven't really seen through, we're not really going to make a difference. So we were all encoded with the exact way how we will raise the vibration of the planet, and it needs to be different because we're needed in all areas. So I really believe that the only way that we can create this new paradigm to solve the world's problems is for each of us to individually focus on our dharmas, because that person who's dreaming of a new preschool that's encoded inside of them. They are the person to do that. That person that's looking at a new way for our food system to feed us, or for us to connect to our elderly, or all of these different issues in the world. If we each just tuned into what is seeking to express through me, as I mentioned to you before, your dreams are dreaming you back. So that dream is encoded inside of you for a reason. It's not random. We're not all having the same dreams. I mean, we have this shared dream of a beautiful world that we're all supported and connected, etc. But your expression of that dream, your contribution to that dream is going to be unique. And in these modern nuclear societies that we've created, we have lost touch with the collective. When we were living in villages, there was the village healer, and there was the warrior, and the shaman, and the medicine woman, etc. So we could look at, she's doing her part by feeding us herbs, he's doing his part by hunting or doing whatever. But now that we have, let go of seeing ourselves as a collective part of a whole, we think, I must do all of the things to fix all of the problems. We try that, we see it doesn't work, and then we just give up, right? So sometimes the best thing you can do is to actually turn off what's happening in the world around you, and all of the noise, and all of the, sometimes very real things that the world can be experiencing, and to focus on, how can I create a sustainable solution? And the only way for it to be sustainable is for it to be filled with joy. If you don't love doing something, you're not going to keep doing it. That's why you keep eating the chocolate, or, smoking the weed, or whatever the thing that you're doing that maybe you don't want to be doing, but it feels good, so you keep doing it. So if you can trust that when something feels in joy, that is going to propel you in that direction. So how can you create your highest form of joy to be in alignment with your highest form of service? That is the only way for it to be sustainable, and for you to actually see about results that can withstand the test of time and be passed on generationally, when it's coming from the place of the heart rather than from guilt.
So well said. So let me ask you this. For the person out there listening who's like, okay, all of this sounds amazing. I want to get myself on track, get in the flow. I've been so out of the flow for so long. I feel so disconnected and numb, like you talked about. It's like, it almost, seems, impossible to, how do I start navigating and get in alignment? And I'm sure it probably felt that way for you at times. So, and you found your way. So what would be your advice for someone who's experiencing that? They're at that stage in their own journey.
So sometimes people feel like, I don't even know what I love to do. And what I advise is to look at, what did you love to do as a child? Because as a child, you were just your most natural expression. Were you that kid that loved to draw or paint? Were you that kid that loved to go outside and, play dodgeball and go on some adventure and scrape your knee along the way? Were you really into board games? Were you into playing house, taking care of animals, playing charades? And looking at why you love to do that thing. So I categorize them in the 3 doshas, the Ayurvedic archetypes, but is it bringing your creativity out? For example, I loved to make up skits and scenarios when I was a kid. I just loved doing that so much. So this year in the quarantine, I was like doing all my TikToks, and I was having such a fun time doing it, because I was exercising this entertainer archetype within me that I don't really get to be in my, normal career and normal life, that it actually fueled me with so much energy, and actually became its own iteration of my Dharma, of now I do these funny little videos, and it's such a sense of joy and purpose for me. So maybe the only thing you can remember to do is, you love to play the piano. What did you love about playing the piano? Did you love to create an experience for your grandmother that was watching you, and make her feel really held and safe? Did you love the fact that you could just show up on that piano and be in a state of flow and let the music come through you? Did you love the space that it would give you away from maybe your chaotic home? So really looking at the things that you love to do, why you love to do them, and bringing them into your life again. I think one of the gifts that we're in right now with this, continual home experience that we're in is we're able to have more time to do the watercolors or to learn French or whatever that thing is that you didn't have time to do in your former life. So when you do these things, it actually is going to give you more energy. That maybe your dharma is not to be a pianist, but as you're playing the piano, now you're feeling better. You're coming in a higher energetic state. Your vibration is increasing. Now you're making decisions from that vibration. You're seeing things in a perspective that you wouldn't have before. You are able to converse in a way that feels more energetic for others. Then you're attracting these higher experiences. So it's happening both on a very physical level of you're thinking more clearly, but also on a higher energetic level too, of your vibration has increased. And that's going to guide you to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So for me, when I was in that dark moment of my life, it was dancing. I would just play music and dance and shake and just be in my body. And I would always walk away from that experience able to come up with solutions more clearly than I would have if I just remained in that just downward grudge.
Such good advice. I absolutely love that. It's like, make the best of what you've got from where you're at, and it really becomes this, our life is, I think, meant to be, you talk about following the breadcrumbs. And I think a lot of people have stopped looking for the breadcrumbs. And so they're just sitting there getting stale on the floor, waiting for you to get a little bit more playful and a little bit more trusting into the process that's unfolding. And especially if you've had an incredibly challenging time leading up to hearing these words right now. Congratulations. That, I don't think it's like your path, Sahara. It's like you had all that challenge that was really serving you ultimately. It's like, how often does the person who's meant to help someone with, heroin addicts first is one themselves? And a lot of times it's like these really challenging paths, are leading you somewhere great. There's an other side to, to the equation. And so I think if you can start taking on that vantage point and saying, okay, I don't know what it is now. I've had a very tough time up to this point, but I'm going to get playful with it. I'm going to tap into my childlike self more. And I'm just going to, learn to dance in the rain, as they say, right? And I think that is exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly. And, sometimes we're like, how do I find my purpose? And sometimes we're not ready for it. We're not ready because we're not the embodiment of it yet. So just because you were born with a purpose does not mean in this lifetime you are going to live it. Most people still don't. So yeah, we need to go through our soul's curriculum for us to have the training, for us to become more skilled, to actually be able to sit in that fire and be that expression of it. So I remember in my own journey, a really hard concept for me to grasp was this path of least resistance. I'd read these books and they're like, just follow the path of least resistance. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense to me, because if my mom followed the path of least resistance, she wouldn't have fled Iran by foot. Or if this homeless person followed the path of least resistance, he wouldn't have gone out of poverty. So how can you say follow the path of least resistance when, oftentimes people have to do the hardest thing in their lives to make the change? So now my understanding of it is that we were each born on a beach, right? We're on the sand and our dharma is out in the open waters. That open waters is the path of least resistance. It's the flow. It's the kriya that I was speaking about. But to get to that open waters, you first got to go through the waves. And those waves are your societal conditioning and your limiting beliefs and your family trauma, ancestral trauma, past life trauma, all the times you said no to yourself, all the times you ignored yourself, all the times that you just didn't listen year after year. And the further off track you are, the bigger and gnarlier these waves are too. So we hear that there are these open waters out there, but we try to go out, we jump into the waves, and it knocks us back to the sand. Then we try a second time, it knocks us back to the sand. So we think there must not be any open waters. It's wave after wave. I tried 2 times and here I am again. And you look around on this beach and it's everyone you know. It's your uncle saying, you know what, when I was in college, I tried to start a band and we failed. So don't follow your dreams. It's a bunch of bullshit.
Going to.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're like, okay, well, I don't even know anyone that's been on these open waters. So is this just, again, a fairy tale dream? Should I just stick to the sand where I'm comfortable and I know this place? It's kind of like Moana. You have this deeper desire to venture out there, but everyone's telling you to stay on your island. So this deeper desire within us, in our intuition, tells us to keep going. And that's what allows us to learn to duck under the waves and become a better swimmer and learn how to navigate the shore. And maybe you go back to the sand, you get your different tools, you get a surfboard, you get some paddles, maybe that's your meditation practice, your breathwork practice, different teachings that you've had. So now you learn how to navigate through these waves, that suddenly you find yourself now in these open waters and you're like, oh, this is the path of least resistance people are talking about. This is the feeling of being in flow. This is what all of these spiritual teachings are referring to. But sometimes to follow the path of least resistance, you first have to follow the path that you are personally the most resistant to.
Yeah, I love that. And it's, it makes me think of one of my favorite quotes, smooth seas never made for a skilled sailor. And you came here to be a skilled sailor. And so, once again, it's like these, it's the big difference between the people who get, that really get there and step into their dharma is, those that don't give up, fall down 7 times, stand up 8, and just continue to believe and hold that vision and aren't getting off on the exits of mediocrity and settling and believing that you're worthy of, having a life that is fulfilling on all levels. And, if anyone's done it, you can do it, right? Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of making the right choices.
Exactly. And it's the nuance of, is this wave showing up in front of me because I'm personally resistant to it? Or am I now just choosing to make life a battle? And I think that sometimes we then take off the belief of, I'm a warrior and life is against me and I need to fight through everything. And I talk about these 5 stages of Dharma discovery. So that first stage is self-awareness. It's when you can feel something needs to change. I see the trajectory of my life. I see where things are going and I don't like it. Something needs to give. So that's when you might have that just realization that you're going to make some sort of shift. You don't know what that's going to be like. So then we naturally emerge into stage 2, and that's self-improvement. So that is when people go on the self-help, motivational speakers, personal development, and it's very focused on the body and mind. You may go on a fitness journey. You may get really into Tony Robbins. You're trying to biohack. You're trying to make your mind better. And this is an important stage for us to be on. We need to take care of our minds, take care of our physical bodies. For me, it was through Ayurveda. For someone else, it could be through meditation, but it's more mental focus, like meditation for anxiety or just having a balanced body and mind. And this is what most of the personal development space is in. It's very in this stage 2. But what naturally happens here is then we realize that we are not a mind and a body to improve, but rather we are a soul to know. And that there is nothing that was ever wrong with us. We already are whole. We just didn't know the full scope of who it is that we are. So then instead of trying to get better and hack my everything, it's, how can I know myself? Who am I? I'm not going to meditate to try to master my thoughts. Let me see where my thoughts are taking me and why they're taking me there. So it becomes more of this self-exploration, and that might take you to anything from astrology to human design to gene keys to different spiritual concepts, etc. So this stage is kind of that spiritual awakening. And for some people, it can be very, very full on intense. And for other people, it can be more gradual. So what happens in the stage 3 is you realize that the world that you were in has a lot more to it that you didn't know about before. And it can often feel very lonely. You can feel very isolated. You can feel very me against the world. There can be a lot of anger towards, how are people so asleep? How are they not talking about this? How is the world not knowing what I
Right.
know about? I remember when I was in my stage 3, I would write these poems. I'm like, we're in a box. They put us in a box. The cubicles are a box. The cars are a box. Our minds are a box. When will we get out of the box? And I don't know what your poetry was like at this time, but it can feel very like, these people are sheeps and we must wake them up, and this separation, right?
Yeah, right.
You're
right,
like,
right.
oh, trust me, I know.
Yeah, that is such a pitfall. I feel like for people to like, to have so much anger at the process of the journey that actually requires some of these, requires these waves, right? And it's learning to like, okay, that's just a part of a bigger puzzle.
Yeah, and it's a natural stage to be on. When you can experience so much more, there is this level of like, why can't other people feel the same way that I am feeling? However, what naturally happens in the stage 3 is you find your tools and your practices that you don't feel as separated with the world, but you rather become more integrated. And you start to understand, well, yeah, this world is pretty fucked up, but I chose to be born in it. So I have some sort of role to play here. And instead of me against the world, it's me as part of the world. So this is a deepening into your tools and practices. You're able to navigate through the ups and downs that may show up. So for someone, it could be breath work or qigong or yoga, whatever it is for you. And in this stage 4, now that we're in this deepening of our spiritual practices, we begin by learning all of these different tools. You learn the Abraham Hicks, you learn the Chinese medicine, all of these different tools, and you naturally want to share them with others. So you may be saying, oh, this person told me about this, or I read that in a book, and you're sharing it maybe with your friends and family. Maybe start sharing it on a podcast or social media. And in this sharing, you begin to get more confident. And in this confidence, you begin to find your own voice and your own way of seeing the world. And you begin to create your own remix of things and have your own experience through it. And this doesn't just have to be about spirituality. It could be your unique way of seeing art, or your unique way of cooking, from, oh, well, Julia Child said this and this person said that, to here's now my take of cooking or my take of my own art. And that naturally takes us now into the stage 5, the Dharma embodiment. So the Dharma embodiment is really about your unique expression to the world, your unique gift to offer, whether it's to 3 people or 3 million people, but it's something that you're wanting to share. And the big shift that happens here is that your focus moves from me to we. In the other 4 stages, the focus needs to be on me, because you need to learn, who am I? How do I set boundaries? How do I practice self-care? How do I navigate this human realm that I'm in? But when you're in that Dharma embodiment, what fuels you actually shifts. It's no longer, oh my God, today was so crazy, I need to put myself in this box and meditate or take my bath to be able to survive in this world. But actually, your Dharma is what fuels you. So after a long day, the thing that you want to do the most is maybe go on your podcast or paint or do the very thing that's your Dharma, because it's nourishing you from a soul level. And you actually feel like you're tapped onto this like drip cosmos that's just moving through your veins, that's infinite. And that's that infinite energy that, you always speak about how you're so excitable. And I feel the same way, because we're tuned into our dharmas. We're tuned into this endless source of energy that we're actually just hooking ourselves into, and it's moving through us. So in this stage 5 Dharma embodiment, you realize that your only mission on this planet is to be a vessel of the divine consciousness that is seeking to move through you. So you do the self-care, you do the practices, you have the conversations, but it's so you can be of service to humanity. And in being of service to humanity, anything that is not in alignment with your Dharma will shift. Relationships, home, jobs, anything, because now you realize it's holding me back from the very reason why I was here. It's holding me back from making the ripple effect on humanity that I was born to do. So I'm not going to let that friendship be the thing that holds me back, or that relationship or whatever it is. So you notice all areas of your life will come into balance and continue to, because now your primary focus is your dharma. It's your number one responsibility here on this planet. So that dharma embodiment is possible for every single person. In fact, it's our birthright. It's why we are here. Everything else that feels more important is really just an illusion that we're going to go through and remember. There is no greater question than our why. It's like being dropped off at a party and being like, I wonder if they have guacamole or salsa, instead of, why was I dropped off at this party and what can I now bring to it? So the Dharma embodiment is, I believe in this lifetime, we will see more people experience it than ever before in our modern history. And like you speak about in your book about being in that chrysalis, I'm seeing right now a lot of people are in their stage 3. The people who have been doing this work are often stage 4, some are stage 5, but a lot of people have just gotten to their stage 3. So there is this kind of mass hysteria feeling of like, we can't trust our media. What? Our government doesn't want what's best for us. And that could be a really harsh awakening when it's your first time realizing this. But then when you start to find the practices and you start to ground more into this body and this experience, you can then focus on, how am I going to create a change?
Right. Woo. Powerful, potent stuff. I so resonate, and I know everyone does. And it's just like realizing that you're somewhere in that journey, and where you are is perfect in divine timing. And I think that's a lot of it, is when we get all this tension built up around where we're supposed to be and everything, it really starts to get in our head and mess with us and hold us back. And so I think that's a big part of it, is just like trusting this dance. You don't dance with the idea of getting to a certain place on the floor, right? You don't dance with that, it's like you're doing it for the whole process. You're not listening to a song to get to the end note. And so wherever you are in this journey, definitely pick up this book, because, the way you lay everything out is just so accessible, Sahara. And I just know, it's just such divine timing for your own dharma to be sharing, this information with so many people who are ready to step in and discover their own.
Thank you so much for that. And yeah, I mean, I believe my soul prepared me to begin writing this book when it did in 2019. So right now, in this experience that we're in, it can be a tool for people to focus on how they can actually make a difference, how they can make this be the lifetime where they are living in full alignment, in full joy, in full expression, in fun. Living your dharma is the most fun and joyous experience that you can feel. And let that ooze through you. We don't need more motivation. We don't need to force ourselves. It's not even always coming through discipline, but rather let it come from devotion. Let it come from this place where it is effortless, where there is no other option. This is just
divine play
through you. Yes. And I believe we all are getting to that. We're all gonna be there, and it's like, do you want to take the long way or the short way? But as soon as you just say yes right. Yep, this is the lifetime that I'm going to be living in pure alignment with my dharma, and continue to listen to the different nudges and directions that my dharma takes me through. Well, we got a planet to up level, y'all. We got our work set in front of us, so let it be fun.
Yes, we do. Absolutely. And we are doing it. You are doing it. And thank you so much, Sahara. This has been absolutely incredible. For those who want to find the book and follow your work and all of that, what is the best way?
Yeah. So if they head over to my website on iamsahararose.com/dharma, you can find the book there. All the links are there, from Audible to Amazon to your local indie bookstore, and submit your receipt to receive my free bonuses, which include a Discover Your Dharma embodiment practice. So you dance your way to get an energetic alignment with your Dharma, a meditation, and a tapping practice. So that website is iamsahararose.com/dharma. And I also have a quiz you can take called the Dharma archetypequiz.com. You can also find that on my website, and it will tell you more about what's your unique Dharma archetype. Are you the teacher, the visionary, the artist, etc.? And that's a beautiful lens to further see your gifts through. So yeah, I'm excited to be here on this planet with you, and I can't wait to see all of you activated in full force, living your fullest expressions.
It is inevitable. And I do have one final question for you, Sarah, it is this. In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life, according to Sahara Rose?
I believe the meaning of life is to let our highest form of joy be our highest form of service.
And so it is. Love that answer. Love everything you're doing in the world. It's such a pleasure to connect with you, as always. And I just greatly look forward to next time.
Thank you so much.
Also, before we sign off, I wanted to remind you about the game with the universe on our website. You can choose the first number that comes to your mind, and it'll pull up that episode number of the podcast. I've been saying this is a great way to co-create synchronicity and magic with your higher self for quite some time. And if you go to positivehead.com/universe, there is a super fun and simple interface to play this game with your higher self. I firmly believe just by setting the intention to play in this way, it opens up the door for magic, and it's a synchronistic way to hone in on nuggets of wisdom out of the huge catalog of episodes that are specifically appropriate for you at this time in your journey to becoming the next greatest and greatest version of yourself. And it also makes for a super fun way to spark the curiosity of friends and family by having them choose a number, so they'll hopefully go and check out their number as well, which I greatly appreciate because it helps us to spread the word about the podcast. Once again, the address is positivehead.com/universe. And as a quick reminder, if you're curious to learn more about Purium superfoods and why I take them almost every day, be sure to also check out positivehead.com/transformation. On this journey of becoming the next greatest and grandest version of ourselves that we have all embarked upon, I cannot stress the importance of managing your physical vibration enough. And quite honestly, Purium has put together the simplest plan I've found to do so. I have my favorite, the appleberry shake, at least 5 times a week. Once again, to learn more about the Purium transformation, go to positivehead.com/transformation. Or if you want to keep it simple and just try out my favorite, the appleberry shake, you can go straight over to ishoppurium.com and be sure to use code positivehead for 25% off. I'll spell that for you. It's ishoppurium.com. And be sure to use your Positive Head 25% coupon code.